What's the clock at?
It'll take about 20 seconds.
Can I speak loud, John? Will that work?
Yep.
There we go. Few technical difficulties, so thanks for your patience with us. Welcome to our city council meeting this evening, August the 8th, 2023. We have with us tonight a special guest, previous council member Steve Huntsman, who we invited to give us an indication, a thought, or both, and to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, would you like to step forward?
Sure. Which would you like first, pledge allegiance or prayer?
Prayer and thought, but let's start with that, then we'll go to the pledge.
Okay, I'll have a prayer if that's okay. Our eternal Heavenly Father, we're grateful to be gathered here as at this city council meeting. We're grateful, and we ask thy blessings be upon these city leaders, especially the mayor and the council. Bless them for their time and for their dedication for the betterment of our city. Bless our community and bless our citizens, that they'll be safe from harm, and that they'll be able to be productive in their lives and productive in their homes and productive with their families. That there'll be peace here in our community and neighborhood. We invite the Spirit to be with us here tonight as we discuss these things, and this we pray in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Dalfius, thank you for inviting me to give a thought. I broke this out of the cupboard. I don't wear it very often, but it represents a lot of great history that I had here in the city. I love North Ogden City. I was telling my wife the other day, I want to die in North Ogden City. I want to get a burial plot here, and even though I'm in my 50s, I want to live here till I die. So it's my home. So I appreciate the council. I appreciate the mayor for protecting our home. I feel safe here. I think you all feel safe here, and it's a great place to live. And thank you for your time and everything. I was asked to give my thought, and my thought that I've been thinking about for a long time comes from a great book that I read by Victor Hugo in Les Mis. And the beginning of the book, he says something here when they were talking about a person the priest in a far off country said something here, and he said, whether true or false, what is said about men often has as much influence on their lives, and particularly on their destinies, as what they do. Whether true or false, what is said about men often has as much influence on their lives, and particularly on their destinies, as what they do. So it's what we say about others that has a big influence. Have you ever walked into a room and they've been talking about you in not a good way, and the air's blue, and you could cut it with a knife? It's very uncomfortable. And this is saying what is said about men. So when I was on the council, it seems like we have a lot of complaints or whatever. Somebody wants something, and then you talk behind their back about what they want to do. So my advice, my thought is protect people's names, protect the sacredness. I think if we as a community protected you as council members and mayor, and protected and said good things about you, I think we'd be a lot happier. be a lot more unified. And so my counsel and my thought is, what is said about somebody has an impact on them. And so I would just say, well, all of us to be careful as we talk about others, and that we talk uplifting and try to find the good in others and what we do. The last thing I was going to say was, you guys have tough decisions, and especially when it comes to zoning or taxes, property taxes, etc. There's a lot of people who have different opinions, and they go one way or they go another. And a lot of times a council will like to vote in unison to show support for something that one of the council members is promoting. They like to show a unified front. The only problem, and that make the council feel good and show, good faith, but the problem with that is there's another half of the community that feels, oh yeah, they're part of the good old boy network, and no one was looking out for me. You all joined together and you voted unanimously, but nobody was looking out for my best interest. So I would encourage you that sometimes when you vote unanimously, and you don't look out for the small guy, they don't ever feel like they're being supported. They feel like it's a good old boy network and you're all joining together and you're all unanimously voting together. That's not the way good government works, as you know. And so I would encourage you, please consider that and not always just join together and vote together unanimously, because it leaves a lot of people feeling like their voices were never heard by the council. So it creates a lot of good when you have a person who's fighting for the opposite guy. That's something I learned is, and the last thing I would say is, when I was on the council, I gained an enormous number of friends who I didn't know I had, but I lost far many more. So I just want to say I feel for your pain, because regardless of what you do, and regardless of vote, you're going to lose a lot of good friends and a lot of good people. But thank you for your service. I really appreciate what you're doing. So thank you for letting me share these thoughts.
Thanks, Steve. That was excellent. I add one thing to that I don't think people recognize is, over time, as a council member or the mayor, you get your skin gets a little thicker and you can let those things run off. But people often don't think what it does to the spouse when they see their husband or their wife kind of being abused. They don't get over it so easy. But great comments, and thanks for your wisdom. Appreciate it. All right. We'll now move into our consent agenda. Council, you've had a chance to look at the agenda, I assume. Is there anything in there that you see that would cause you to declare a conflict of interest and this evening?
Mayor, I need to recuse.
Go ahead. No.
Okay, thank you. Mayor, I need to recuse myself on discussion point 4 and 5.
Councilman Exton, did you have a comment?
Yes, just reiterating my potential conflict with RDA funds if they are chosen to be spent in the North Ogden Plaza where I own a business. So that's just.
John, correct me if I'm wrong. The important thing is declaring there's a conflict. They can surely participate in the discussion and actually vote if they would like.
That's correct. That's the way the state code is written.
Okay, so just as a reminder, along those lines. We'll now enter into our active agenda, and we'll seek public comments for those who would like to step up to the podium this evening. Or online, John, if you would watch. If you would just state your name, and if you're a resident of North Ogden, and I'd appreciate it if you keep your comments to no longer than 5 minutes. So if anyone would like to comment, now would be the time.
Stephanie Casey, I'm a North Ogden resident. I'll be quick. I'm looking forward to the open house tomorrow on the pond. I am, however, a little disappointed that there's nothing about it on the city website. Nowhere. It's not even on the calendar. And the first thing I saw about it was posted on the Facebook page yesterday, so I'm not sure what kind of community involvement you're gonna get. So if we could at least get it on the city website and try to get people here with 1 day's notification, that'd be great.
Anyone else this evening?
Chris Wilbur, North Ogden. Just with the coming agenda, just wanted to kind of chat through, because I did sit through all of the that February 15th long crazy meeting that the planning commission had. Anyways, I kind of concur with all of their statements, and while it is beneficial to get something in there, you're basically taking a short-term gain for short-term gain for something that could be a lot longer-term gain with a better price at the end. Understanding that property rights and people have the authority to petition and come before you guys and just to say, this is something that's important and I want to do it. So, but I tend to agree with the zoning that is as is. So that was just my comment. Thanks.
Doug Anderson, North Ogden. When and where is this pond discussion, please? Can you tell us all right now? The
Sure.
basics.
The basics are, is there's a public hearing tomorrow, I believe, from 4 to 6 o'clock.
4:30 to 6:30.
4:30 to 6:30. That will be held here, John,
This room.
in
Yep.
this room. And it's for the purpose of allowing citizens to see the proposed outlay and the process of that project.
4:30 in this room. Thank you.
And John, I believe that's been posted.
It's been on the public notice websites, and it's an open house. So that during that whole 2 hours, it's kind of a come and ask questions and learn more information about it. It's being administered by the NRCS.
NRCS stands for,
National Reclamation. Oh, shoot. It's they deal with dams and other sorts of risk mitigation.
okay.
And where's this pond supposed to be?
Would you like to step up here?
No.
Okay, then.
I'll finish my
Thanks.
5 minutes. What, tell us where the pond is, please.
I believe it's down in Patriot Point subdivision, which is just off 2550 and about 150 east. Tom?
Yeah.
It's that new development down there. This was proposed and I think approved by the council some 3.5 or 4 years ago.
I remember some talked about it, but the specifics, I appreciate you refreshing all of our memories.
It's excuse me, a combination with Pine View. They will have a basically a reservoir storage unit there. On top of that will be a retention basin that would replace the one on 2700. Down here it'll be moved. It's a bigger basin that would allow for development of that as commercial property. And also has a recreational portion to it, which includes a park, a pavilion, restrooms, and the ability for people to use that for kayaking, etc.
So it's intended to be a body of water, not just an overflow basin like a lot of these.
Correct.
Super.
Yeah, it's
Fishing, did I hear you say fishing?
no fishing.
Never mind, I'm not voting for it.
No fishing.
Would I be arrested if I were to plant some rainbow trout?
They might die, so they're easy to catch, but I guess as they say, anything's legal till you get caught.
Thanks.
Well, somebody said that wasn't me, but. All right, is there any other comments online, John?
No raised hands online.
All right, then we're gonna move forward. We have a special occasion tonight. We have a new city recorder. It's been hired by the city. Ryan
Yes,
Santoro, is that? Did I say that right?
Santoro, yes.
Ryan Santoro, just wanted to make sure, and she has joined the city and has been working closely with Joyce. We appreciate Joyce's mentorship and helping her integrate into the city. I think, what, 4 days now or 3?
About 4, 5, yeah.
Around though, that's
Yeah.
good. So anyway, tonight, we are going to swear her in as our new city recorder. And Joyce, who's our deputy city recorder, is going to perform that. So Ryan,
Thank you.
Ryan, do you have family here tonight?
I do have family here.
Who's here?
My
Raise your hand if
father.
you're here for Ryan.
My father, my sister, my dad's girlfriend, and my son Leo is here.
All right. It's always good to be supported by family.
Isn't it lovely? I'm so honored. Thank you.
Welcome and thank you for joining us tonight. Okay, Joyce.
Okay, if you will raise your right hand and repeat after me, okay? I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend, the Constitution of the United States, and the Constitution of this state, and that I will discharge the duties of my office with fidelity. Thank you so much.
We're excited to have Ryan with us, and I think next meeting, I noticed she was shaking a little down there earlier, so we're happy to have her with us. We're confident she'll do an excellent job.
Thank you.
Councilman Barker, did you have
Yes.
something you wanted to comment on?
I haven't asked them, but before we get into the city discussions, is it all right? I make a motion that we move item number 6, the discussion on charity days to right now, if that's all right with. Okay, that's my motion.
Okay, we have a motion to move item 6
Second.
up to item 4. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to item number 6. This is a follow-up on our Cherry Days committee. They would like to give us a report, and we would also like to recognize their efforts. And, I would ask Councilmember Barker, who graciously accepted the assignment to be the liaison with Parks and Recreation. And I believe from everything I heard was very supportive and the committee making sure that they had the resources they needed. So thank you, Councilmember Barker. And I would ask you to come down with me and we will honor them. We have some plaques here, some beautiful plaques and card and a gift card. So we'll step down there and we'll grab these. But while he's doing that, let me just say how much we appreciate the effort. I think it's really hard to recognize the commitment and the passion that this group had for the assignment they were given without being involved. And we surely recognize it wasn't easy from 2 aspects. There was an extreme amount of work in organizing this and getting things set up, which was handled very well. And then also the emotional part of the assignment, which I'm sad to say they took a lot of heat, negative feedback, and I apologize for that, but they came through with flying colors and handled both aspects of their assignment with dignity and passion. And on behalf of the city and on behalf of the council, we're so grateful that you accepted that assignment. We're extremely grateful that you signed on to do this for life. As you have for mayor. Thank you.
Oh, we should have further discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is a plaque that we'd like to present to each of the group. We look at this in couples. I believe we have one for each, and then we have a basket and a card. To start with, this is Terry Bexell. He was the overseer.
Only because I'm taller.
Well, the overseer did do a lot of work. He oversaw it. No, actually, Terry did a lot of work. So Terry, on behalf of North Ogden City, we want to present you this little plaque to put in your office. We also have, Lynn will give this to you if you come up, because Terry will lose this. And it's just a little card, and a gift card is a small token of our appreciation.
A small basket.
Oh,
And
my
a
goodness.
small basket. Councilmember Ekstrom spent a lot of time putting that together and making it, so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, Lynn, don't go away, we have one for you.
Someone's gonna say they're lovely.
We'll give you the box. This is the empty box, and here is yours. And let me just read that.
Make sure it looks the same as Terry's.
So what this says is it's North Ogden Cherry Days. Presented to Lynn Bexell for outstanding service in leading the North Ogden Cherry Days celebration 2023. Has our little North Ogden logo on it. Thank you. So thank you.
Very nice.
All right, now it's Spencer and Megan, your turn. This one's for you. And you should have got two little ones.
Maybe we'll give you this. Spencer,
Yeah.
what is it? How are you?
Yep. Thank you. Let's get it. Now, Alan and Melanie. Remember, now you're last to get pictures. Is yours kind of
It's really beautiful, thank you. Yeah, that's very nice. Thank you so much.
And last but not least, because we know who is really instrumental also in this, in addition to all the wives, pretty much handle things, so, and friends. So here's your card. You keep that, and we really appreciate it. Yeah, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
So Lynn, do I understand you'll be giving the report on Cherry Days?
Yep.
Thank you.
So first, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to kind of go over what happened last month. It was kind of a blur. It was a little crazy, but we had a great time. And I want to talk about the groups of people that were involved in Cherry Days. First of all, I want to talk about the executive committee. I didn't fully realize until we got into it that it was 3 couples that didn't know each other. And I remember meeting Melanie, and within 15 minutes, I was on board. She had a vision. She knew what we could do, and she had a way to get it done.
She had the contacts and the experience, and the more she talked, I was on board. And so thank you, Mayor, for letting us do this or putting us together. Melanie held us to a standard. She knew what we could do, and she helped us see the vision of what Cherry Days could be. And so it was amazing working with her. And Megan is amazing also. We lost one of our chairmen well into our planning, and Megan stepped right in and took over that job. And among other things, she handled it so well, and having never done it before, it was amazing to watch her work and be successful at that. And then our three men, and I know the mayor made a little joke about it, but anytime we would hit a road bump, there was Terry and Ellen and Spencer, and every one of them would say, I've got this. I can figure this out. I'll go get it. I'll construct something that will work. I mean, we almost didn't have any roadblocks because they jumped right in and took care of it. So it was an amazing, amazing committee that was all in, and they were all in until through tonight. There was not a time when anybody, fell behind or wasn't engaged. It was amazing to watch how we all worked together, especially not knowing each other. But then, Mayor, you assigned us a liaison. You asked Ryan to be with us, and I thought, oh, how are we going to keep a liaison in the loop? How are we going to let him know what's going on? And Mayor, just between me and you might want to take Brian aside, because I don't think he understands the word liaison. The reason I think that is because he showed up to our second meeting. And I said, Ryan, what are you doing? And he says, well, you're having a meeting, right? And I said, yeah. And he says, well, I'm here for the meeting. The only way he knew that we had a meeting is he had read the notes from our first meeting and figured out at the end of the meeting, or at the end of the notes, our meeting time. And I want you to know that he came to every meeting that didn't conflict with city council. And in those meetings, he would volunteer to take assignments, and he followed through. He fundraised for us, and he was quite successful doing that. He used his expertise as fire marshal and city council to help guide this committee and to help us be more successful. In fact, he was a really, really hardworking, fully committed member of this committee. And you know what, Mayor? Maybe we don't want to let him know. Don't tell him, let's not embarrass him, that he doesn't know how, because he was wonderful to work with. So thank you to Ryan. The second group I want to talk about is the sponsors. We had some wonderful, wonderful sponsors who stepped up to help us and to support the city, the citizens of North Ogden. They made it possible for us to have over 20 events that were free. We also had events that were $1 and $2 and others that were greatly reduced. That carnival that we held was held 3 weeks prior in Idaho. They charged $25 for a wristband, the same wristband that we were charging $10 and $15 for. So we were able to do some things because of these wonderful sponsors that we had. And I know when we stood in front of you back last fall and asked for some money and said that we were going to raise some money, I think there was some doubt that we would be able to raise between $25,000 and $40,000. But I want you to know that we raised $59,845. And that doesn't include some of the in-kind things that we couldn't quantify. But that was an amazing amount for them to, the sponsors to give us. The next group that I want to talk about is the event chairman. You all know that we have some amazing talent in North Ogden, and they stepped up to help us. I kept saying throughout the event, we can have the best committee in the world. But if you don't have event chairmen that are going to step up and handle these events, we're of no worth. And we had many who approached us and wanted to help us. And I just want to highlight a couple of these. One of them is Stephanie Casey. I'm so glad she's here tonight to hear me talk about her, because she agreed to help us in any way that she could with her audio skills. The first thing she did was take off the week of work at her regular job, and then attended every event where she was needed. She did her own setup, her own takedown, and then she let me know that her equipment was in the car just in case I realized I needed her at something else. She was amazing, and she set the tone for many of the events that we had. Another one is Kimber Brady. Kimber did not know anyone on the committee, but she was reading some comments on Facebook and was recognizing how kind of negative they were until she saw a positive remark from Mark Miller. She didn't know Mark Miller, but she contacted him and said, I want to help. So Mark sent me her contact information, and as Melanie and I began talking to her, we realized what an asset she was going to be. It is thanks to her that we had this event guide. She was able to put that together with Melanie's vision of what it should look like. She made it come to fruition, and this went to every home in North Ogden, and she did that all volunteer, and it took hours and hours. I had no idea how long some of these things can take. Another one was Jacob Sorensen. He just sent a note on Facebook, private messaged us, and so we contacted him, and as soon as we started to talk to him, we realized he had contacts and experience. He's the one that produced all of the music and the stage and that whole Saturday music, and also on Friday, he and Mark Miller together, they both worked together on that. I wish I could take the time to go through every one of the event chairmen in this book, because every single one of them went above and beyond. And if they hadn't done this event before, because many events we hadn't done before, they figured out how to do them. They looked at things that could go wrong. They really dove in and did these events. So I hope that you'll take some time and thank these people. They really worked hard to make this happen. The next group is city employees. 2 years ago, when I was involved with Cherry Days, we didn't get a lot of help from the city, and I recognized that it was a very different situation 2 years ago. But when we sat down with John and the mayor in the beginning of this, they assured us that the city would be right there to help us. But, you know, we still had doubts because of our experience with them. But I want you to know that these city employees went above and beyond. They were there to help us. In the very beginning, we were just sitting in a meeting, and these two people were not in the meeting, but Becca Godfrey and Justin Rasmussen both jumped in and said, I'd like to be over an event. In fact, they each took 2 or 3 events to be over, and I never had to worry about them. I knew they had them, they'd done them before, and it was wonderful working with them and knowing that I could depend on them. Dave Espinoza, Shar Jones, and Jamie Gill, I think they got to where when they saw my name up there, they just answered the phone and said, what do you need? There was never any hesitation. If they couldn't do what I needed them to do, they figured out a way to make it happen. They used their expertise in figuring out some real problems that we had. And it was thanks to them that they did all of that. Bryce, Shelley, John, Tyrell, I shouldn't start mentioning names because I know there's more. There was one time they recognized that we were set up in a place that wasn't completely safe. And so they came to me and said, can we move you? I was thinking, I've got tables, I've got pop-ups, I've got electricity, I've got devices, and how are we going to do this? Well, standing off to the side is a whole group of employees. They gave them the nod that it was okay to move, and within just minutes, everything was picked up, moved to where we were safer and put down, and then they disappeared. And this is the way the week went. They were amazing. And then Jeremy and Dirk from the police department, along with the other policemen that supported us. They were amazing. And we couldn't have done it without them. There was a lot of things that they had access to, equipment and things like that, that they made sure that we were successful in what we were doing. Next is volunteers. We had many, many volunteers, and one of the groups that were so supportive of us were candidates for city council, and they showed up with a lot of people to help them. We also had some citizen volunteers, and of course, the city council. You were all there helping us and jumping in where you saw that we needed help. So we really appreciate that. I don't know if Charlotte will ever get over that taco truck or whatever she said.
I just hope I didn't drip on anybody's face.
Yeah, I hope you got the oil out of your shoes. It was it was great to work with the city council on a different plane. The last is the community. The community came and they participated. We had over 30 events, and it almost got to be a joke because Melanie would tell us how many people she expected at an event. And we're watching the website and it's nowhere near what she's saying. But every single time it exceeded what she had told us. And the community was good and happy and excited to be there, and proof that we had planned some really, really good things. One of my most favorite things that happened was on Saturday. It was in the afternoon. Terry and I were selling wristbands to the carnival. Terry was doing the cash and I was doing the online stuff, and a young man walked up. He was probably, I'm gonna guess 11 or 12 years old. And he walked up and he set $10 down on the table and he said, "I'd like to get a wristband." And Terry looked at him and he said, "Well, wristbands are $15. Do you have another $5? And he said, "No, I don't." And before Terry could even get out of his mouth some other suggestion, another young man, maybe a year older, walked up behind him, pulled out his wallet, took $5 and threw it on top of his $10. And Terry and I looked at him, and I could tell that he didn't know who he was. The young man looked at him and said, "Thank you." Terry put on his wristband, and the other young man walked up, and Terry said to him, he says, "Are you his brother?" And he said, "No, I don't know him." I thought, how amazing that these kids that are here in North Ogden, I hope he's a North Ogden resident, but he didn't even hesitate to pull that money out. He didn't even have his money out for his wristband, but he went ahead and paid his $15, and then Terry made sure that he gave him an extra $5 in change, because Terry was going to offer that first young man to just come in. But it was amazing to see that happen. So when you consider all of these different groups of people, there were 7 people on the committee. We had over 40 sponsors. We had over 25 event chairmen. We had over 500 volunteers, including the city people that helped us. And it's hard to quantify, but some events I could give you a number, but there was others that I had to guess. There were over 26,000 people that participated in our events over the week. And when you consider all of those people coming together in such different positions, I hope that you'll agree with me that we achieved our theme, North Ogden, we are one. I have a short video for you to watch. Thank you to Chad Roylance. He was another one of the people that came and stayed the whole week. He ended up taking over 5,000 pictures and then put together that video for us. And we asked him if we could pay him and he said no. This is his hobby. And you can tell he's got a great hobby. He's wonderful at it. Let's talk a little bit about money. We don't have all of the numbers in yet, but I want you to know that your $19,000 that you asked for us to get back to you, you have. In fact, we didn't touch it. And you're going to get another good portion of the rest of the money back. We were successful in getting the sponsors to give us money, but we also took in a good amount of money. And so we hope to report better on that later on, but we feel like it was a success. So I just want to say thank you from the executive committee. We had a great time. Thank you for trusting us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent report.
And then Spencer.
May I add to that? Yeah.
So, I want to, first of all, thank all of you again for asking us to be involved. Megan and I had a great time. But real quick, I just want to acknowledge one more person, and that's Lynn. In true fashion, she did not make any of this about her. She was the chairperson. Now, once during this whole speech, during this whole presentation, did she say one thing about anything that she did? I'm not sure she slept for the last 3 months. We would get text messages and emails at 11 o'clock at night and then again at 5 or 6 in the morning. She was involved in every single piece of all of this event, but she made sure that every bit of it was about the team, about the volunteers, and about the community. Lynn was an amazing leader, and we all chatted after the event a few days later. We decided that if we were going to do this again, if the council decides to have us do it, the only way we would do that is if Lynn and Terry can chair the committee again for us. So we want to thank Lynn for everything she did. She is amazing. You want to go over the poll right now?
I think it would be good to at least give a high level at this point in time. I think Spencer, when you come back to give the final financial report,
okay,
we can get into the detail, but I think it would be good for the citizens to know that the survey has been completed and
yeah,
at least an overview.
Okay, great.
Go as deep as you want them.
Yeah, so I will stay pretty high level on it. The main thing that I got out of the poll is that I now have more questions than I do answers. And I've been in talking to the mayor and to John today. They both said that we can do more polls as well as we'd like to hold an open house to have more face-to-face interaction with the residents to really understand why. It's hard to quantify in one little sentence somebody's feeling. But I feel like having a more of an open house style event that we can actually dig in and understand. The biggest thing that I got out of this poll is that this community loves the 4th of July and that we love our community. As Lynn said, we had really great turnout at all of the events. Most of them, at least twice what we thought were going to show up. And overwhelmingly, overwhelmingly, all of the events had positive reviews. It was the one thing that we did see was that there was people who wanted the parade on the 4th of July. But what we don't know, because we asked too many questions in one question, is that it was the parade route was involved in the question, as well as the date. So I feel like we need to separate those two out so that we understand. Overwhelmingly, people want the parade back on Washington. So we need to figure out how to make that work with UDOT and get ahead of that farther ahead so that we can make sure that that happens. And then we need to figure out if we are going to move the parade back to the 4th, how that affects all the other events. A big reason for moving that was how all the other events stack on top of each other. So that's kind of all I have to say about the poll as far as today. Just know that we are digging into it. We do appreciate the feedback. We hope more residents get involved in the next poll. I'll start working with John in the next few weeks, drafting questions for that. And if, Mayor, any of the council members have any feedback that they would like or specific questions that they would like asked, we definitely would like to add those to the poll.
Thank you, Spencer. I think we had just under 500 on the initial response here, as I recall,
Yeah.
481 or something of that nature. We're hoping to get as many respondents as we can.
Yeah.
So when we have that final report, I know you get a chance to dig into this, so we'll see some more information. I think our approach has been this is information for the committee to digest. And in the spirit of improving, I think it's pretty hard to improve, but I think we learned a few things that we can improve on. And I would just say this, as we put this group together, our intentions were for each couple to kind of maybe 2 years max and then rotate. So we think we have this covered for another 5 years. But it went, I'll be honest with you, it went from, I don't know if I want to do this again, when things got kind of tough, to when are we going to do this again? And so we're appreciative of that. And I just want to point out that as part of the financial report, being a finance guy myself, I want the citizens to know the money came through the city and went out through the city. And, obviously there's always room for improvement, but I know there's been some concern how this worked, and I didn't want Lynn to kind of skip over this. I don't think she did, but not only was the 19,000 not used, but I think you guys on the final numbers, which we were waiting to digest, there'll be a good start towards building that for a 501c3 in the future. This was a community event, and the genesis of it was a couple of years ago when the city did not do Cherry Days and the citizens took over. The response was the citizens do a much better job, which is true. And so, I believe this ought to be a community event, not a city event, to be supported by the city. But I also just want to point out that when we ask somebody to be responsible for something like we did with you, we also have to give you the authority to make it happen, which you guys took on both with the support of the city. So once again, thank you, and we'll look forward to that final report as you digest the survey and we get the final financial report. But at this point in time, we know there's no touching of the 19,000, and there's some excess that will come in to start seeding this for a long-term situation in the city. So thanks, Spencer.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move on to item number 5, which was item number 4. And Scott Hess, our Community and Economic Development Director, lead this discussion. And this is regarding an ordinance to amend the general plan to permit manufacturing uses within Southtown neighborhood. For those of you who would like to note this, it's ordinance number 2023-15. I believe council member Severing, this is an issue you wanted to declare the conflict on. So we'll let you approach that as you see fit. Scott?
Thank you. Mayor and Council, this is in reference to Terry Severing's project that he's applied for and has a number of entitlement steps along the way. So I'll let the room clear. It's okay. The project began with an annexation. This was a piece of property that was in the unincorporated county. This is south of 1700 North and on the corner southwest side of Washington Boulevard, 1700 North. Terry applied to be annexed into the city with a dual zone of manufacturing on the front side and multifamily residential in the back. And he's long had this project. He's brought it to the city a number of times in front of different planning commissions and councils. And ultimately that annexation was approved and was required to have a development agreement as part of it. And in the interim of doing that, back when the annexation happened, the city did hold a public hearing and for both this general plan amendment as well as the amendment to the manufacturing zone that would permit new storage units. And that's the item that we'll talk about after this one. When this came forward on July 25th in front of the council, these two items should have rolled forward with it. And we're kind of just lost in the haze of what has happened in the beginning of the year and the staffing. So my apologies, but to the council's credit in asking the planning department to bring this forward as quickly as possible, it was on the next meeting. So here we are to discuss tonight. The general plan calls this area of the city that kind of covered by Village of Prominence Point and south, so not approximately 2000 north around Washington Boulevard and then south, including the southwest quadrant of the city, the Southtown area of the city. And the general plan it's not an obligation to follow by the state of Utah. It's an obligation to have. We do have to have a general plan in order to do zoning, but they don't have to be one for one. And general plans you can think of as a big umbrella document, 30,000 foot level that should provide a myriad of uses for any individual portion of the city, and then your specific zones should align with those uses, fairly closely or as closely as possible. And maybe not zones, but uses. Think about it that way, because you could fit, something like storage into a number of different places. You could put it in a commercial box or manufacturing box or however you want to fit it. In this particular case, the entitlement track, as Terry and I sat down and talked about this almost a year ago, this was kind of one of the paths of least resistance. And the city has been extremely good at following its own general plan. So this is a 2015 general plan. And in the Southtown area, it talks about what the neighborhood character is, kind of what it's made up of and what should go into this. And we've prepared just a brief change to that would include Class A storage uses. So in the ordinance itself, that's the way that it's written out. Planning Commission back in February spent a lot of time talking about this, talking about what this area of the city should be. It's long been stated or slated for multifamily housing, which this project has about 5 acres of, and then the front half of this project is 5 acres of Class A storage, which isn't a sales tax producing use. You'll get property taxes out of it. But the Planning Commission discussed a lot about what this area of the city should look like, what the frontage of Washington Boulevard should look like. And in this particular case for the general plan amendment, they recommended not to make any amendments to the Southtown zone to, 5-2 voted to deny the petition to not make a change to the Southtown zone that would permit new manufacturing uses to come in. So they liked the project, they liked, so many things about it, but it was just, I think the linchpin was this idea of we're a growing city, we need to save our tax base, and that hinged on that conversation of we're going to lose some acreage of tax base. And then the conversation continued, new growth sometimes gets new growth. So it's possible that new investment here will lead to new commercial uses coming in up the road. But at any rate, that's what the Planning Commission's recommendation was. Staff has brought forward an ordinance, so you can take action on that tonight if you so choose, and the applicant is also here if you have any questions for them. But talking about just the process, you have annexation with a development agreement, and then now to permit this project that has been requested, we want to, well, the entitlement track is amend the general plan to allow manufacturing uses, and then the next item will be whether or not the city wants to reinstate Class A storage as a permitted use within the manufacturing zone. Because we have some storage units now, but that was pulled out a number of years ago too. So it's just the steps we would go through. If these steps are all clear, the application is still, has items to do, which will include a full subdivision and site plan preparation and review, and that will be at the planning commission level. They're the land use authority for those. So it's a lot of talk. Do you have any questions?
Scott, I do have a question or two, but let me see if the council does before. I'm not seeing anyone. Did you want to?
No, but I'm mulling over things, and a lot of times when you ask a question, then it spurs a question for me.
Keep going. As I read through the packet, if I'm correct, staff is recommending we don't change the zoning. Is that correct?
It is, yeah. So staff's recommendation, just looking at, we're 21,000 people have built out at about 40,000, and we have really limited areas of sales tax generation land left in the city. 1700 North is one of the last stoplight improved areas that the city will get. We have talked to UDOT about potentially 2,300, but no guarantees. UDOT is very protective where they're going to do a stoplight. Stoplight controlled intersections are where growth happens and development really kind of focuses in on. But we're also, staff's practical and pragmatic to the fact that North Ogden is in many ways a destination community. You don't have a freeway access, you don't have a commuter rail running through it, you don't have a major highway running through the middle of it. So we're never going to get Farmington Station. We're not going to be some next mall hub in some ways. So there's the balancing act of development that's ready to go today versus the, stop and wait for whatever commercial can come in the future.
So here's my question on this that I need some clarity on. When the applicant came some time ago, we said the best approach on this would be to kind of get a thumbs up from the planning commission and from the city council. I believe they got both of those at one point in time. And so they proceeded along to get a development agreement and a few other things. So I was a little bit taken back. I guess the planning commission kind of reversed their initial thumbs up. And I know it was just kind of a thumbs up, it wasn't approval. But I guess here's my ultimate question, because I like a little bit of consistency, but I know there's. So the planning commission, I believe, approved on the corner right across from Big Old Tire, that corner there, to expand the existing storage units right on Washington Boulevard on a corner. So if our concern is, which we all like commercial, we all like sales tax, we understand that, we haven't had a lot of success on selling commercial ground along Washington Boulevard. So why do we approve one on a corner, but we're concerned about another corner?
So that's Dan Nixon's storage unit project, and he purchased, there were two different projects. I think there was his and then another storage units that he ended up picking up and buying. And they haven't been invested in since they went onto the ground. So probably like, I don't know, late 70s, early 80s. There's some really pretty broken down, worn down structures there. So what the code that was written then and the applicant went through was upgrades to existing storage units using this new Class A storage outline, basically. So some of the open buildings could be enclosed in place. There would be trade-offs done, like storm water management that was never done when the project was originally done and is affecting Coldwater Creek. So The discussion at that time was, do we let a use that's no longer permitted continue to like, deteriorate in place essentially until it's worth just what the ground is worth and then it turns over? Or do you allow a property owner to reinvest in their own project through some development on site when it really wasn't, I wouldn't say it's an expansion, it was an improvement to the existing Class A storage. That's the difference. That
It's on the
that I see.
corner, right? It's a commercial piece of property.
Yep, their property does come out and touch, so they'll have a commercial, they'll have their office on the front, but no storage facing the front.
Right. But he's got now an office on site.
He will, he hasn't built it yet, but.
Oh, but there is one currently there.
on
So we're taking a
2000.
commercial piece, I'm just trying to get this clear in my mind. Because he has an office on there.
Does.
And we got a commercial piece of property on the corner.
Yep.
And we're gonna change that to basically non-commercial. There'll be an office building there, but it's not gonna generate sales tax. Which is one of the reasons I think I saw in the staff report. So anyway, just my question.
No, I agree.
Okay. Did that generate any concerns for you, Councilman Brixton?
It was about the same kind of thing. It's like, wait, I thought we already kind of discussed this. You know, I really hate to see us, you know, give someone who has, you know, operating in good faith, he's planning on building a structure, he's going forth, and we kind of said, yeah, go ahead, and then we, you know, zone against him. I don't feel right about that. You know, you know, we had discussions at length about whether or not to have storage units, but I think ultimately with the population that's around, there's a lot of residential and would like some storage unit. You know, we haven't had tons of interest in putting any sort of retail out there either. So I hate to keep going against the planning commission's recommendation, but I feel like to be consistent, just as you said, I would like to zone in a way that permits what we kind of already said we were gonna do.
Thank you. Anyone else have comments? Councilman Galvez?
From my perspective, I think putting in a building that will look aesthetically pleasing and it will be, in my mind, an eventual draw to the commercial that will probably happen just barely to the north of there. And I do remember that we had lengthy conversations in other city council meetings where we talked about, oh, well, we don't want to give up sales tax. I totally get that. And that's something that I was concerned about. And we even presented the idea to Terry of, is there an option for any commercial space, maybe on those premises? And I think that he explored it a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of possibility, or I guess we could say there weren't a lot of people knocking on his door trying to put a commercial space combined with the storage or whatever. So anyways, I would be concerned about going against kind of the way that we've led him in the past. And I generally, just as Councilwoman Ekstrom stated, I generally like to agree with the planning commission whenever possible, when it makes sense, but this is a situation that's pretty unique, and I think we should kind of move forward with the plans that Terry has presented with us.
Councilmember Barker, do you have anything you want to add? Are you good?
No, I agree. Without going into too much detail, it's hard when people following planning commission recommendation and it should change to that. I feel for the applicant.
Okay. Do we want to hear from the applicant? Do you have anything, Terry, you'd like to add to discussion or?
Yeah, Terry Severing, Plain City, on that family owns the property there on 1700 North. Yeah, I'm just kind of a little confused because last meeting we voted on moving forward, and I brought up to Scott that it was the only thing that I seen in that development agreement was the fact that they put it as a C1 rather than the M1, which is what we were originally going for. And that's where I'm kind of confused. We're all going back to all this discussion on, well, this is what the planning commission decided and this is what we decided. And I've moved forward and started, with recommendation to go ahead and get my site plans and all that going. And now we're back to starting over again, I feel like, and I just wanted to give my feelings about that, yeah, I feel like I'm getting kicked back to the barn and we'll figure it out, But unless you've got other questions, that's just how I'm kind of a little confused on.
Any questions?
No,
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Terry. I do believe, John, correct me if I'm wrong, that the development agreement does have a very nice building out front that has some retail space in it.
Correct. There is an office where there'll be locks and stuff sold as a minimum. Yeah.
So, okay, well, if you don't have any other questions, council, this is ordinance 2023-15. This is an ordinance to amend the general plan to permit manufacturing uses within the Southtown neighborhood. We have a motion to do that.
Mayor, I motion that we approve the amending of the general plan to permit manufacturing uses within the Southtown neighborhood near approximately 1651 North and 1659 North Washington Boulevard. Oh, with ordinance number 2023-15.
Thank you, Councilmember Dalpaz. Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ekstrom. Any further discussion? We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote on that. I apologize again for not announcing in advance. You'll have to remind me. Councilmember Barker,
Yes.
Councilmember Dalpaz,
Yes.
Councilmember Ekstrom,
Yes.
Councilmember Severie, did you want to vote or abstain? Okay, motion passes on a 3-0 vote to amend the general plan to permit manufacturing. Scott, we'll go on now to the next item that I believe you're also going to lead the discussion on. And this is a discussion on the ordinance to update Title 11, Section 10, Article B of the manufacturing zone, also known as M1. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
So the city has pretty limited M1 zone zoning that exists right now, and almost all of it is storage units. You have box storage, the Dan Nixon project sure lock it up storage, and now this piece could be potentially that as well if it's M1. The thing that restricted it is that you had storage units were permitted in this zone so long as they were constructed prior to a certain year, and that certain year was November 1, 2021. So they've been pulled out from at least that point, but it was prior to that that they were not permitted. That change happened when we added the Class A standards for Dan Nixon's Lock It Up upgrade project. So there's a few things to think about in this. This is now, we've got the general plan in that area that the city is saying these particular uses are permissible. So any other property owner could apply for a similar rezone. The council is in the legislative decision-making body for rezone, so you would choose whether or not it's in the best interest to go any number of zones that are applied for. But this just takes the list of permitted uses and says that general Class A storage units in general manufacturing are permissible. So it's really simple description, but the change is that any new zoning that comes in as manufacturing, they would be permitted to move forward with that use as a by right through just their standard like subdivision and site plan process and not through the legislative process.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Hess? Pass.
I seem to remember in previous discussions from previous meetings that we had somewhat intended for this to be an additional area that we would allow storage units. But I felt like it was our intention that we didn't want to necessarily open it up to anywhere within the M1 zone. Can you talk to that? Because it sounds like you're saying it's anyone's right if they are in the M1 zone to be able to do this without any special legislative authority.
Yeah, right. And that's where I think that the restriction is more at the general plan level, because that's what guides your rezones. So permitted or not permitted uses, are typically not broken down within a particular zone. You wouldn't say, I guess unless you said M1 uses south of a certain north and west of Washington Boulevard would be permissible, and we could add that language back if you want to clarify specifically this. But the council would be in the driver's seat of permitting or not permitting future rezones to M1. So that's kind of the protection that the council has at this point. So if another 10 or 15 or 20 acres of Washington Boulevard frontage came in as Class A storage, the council could at that point determine we have enough of this use already, or we need more of this use, so we're willing to rezone. And once it's rezoned, it's anything that's permitted in that zone.
Scott, how many areas do we have zoned in one right now?
I want to say it's like 2 unique areas. So there's one that's the box storage, and then there's Sure Site storage. There's a third one up there. And what is that? Is
The
that
Aquatic Center.
The Aquatic Center.
Oh, interesting.
I think I have math in error.
So we don't have that issue right now.
We have very little M1, but you do have, if you will scroll down, John, that whole white square there that's blank, that's the annexation area of the city that is still to be determined what use will end up in there. And you never know what someone's going to come in and apply for.
And the nice thing is that on the designation for a rezone for any future properties, the council has the absolute authority to say no. Even if it's a neighboring piece of property, the council can say, well, we've got enough MB1 there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Gus? Scott, let me just say, we appreciate all the work you put into this, and we respect your opinion. And it's always good to have your opinion. I'm a believer that it causes us to think through things, and so I hope you don't think this is something that we don't respect your opinion.
No, I appreciate being able to, have that candor and provide my opinion. It's really nice, and it's honestly, it's your city. That's why you're elected, and you get to choose and look at these things, and they're not easy decisions. So, thank you.
But no, we always appreciate your opinion, and never feel that you can't be contrary to those. We don't take that personal. I think it's actually good governance to have difference of opinion. So, okay, with that, if there's no questions, I would look for approval of ordinance 2023-16, which would be a motion to approve that ordinance to update Title 11, Section 10, Article B of the manufacturing zone M1. That would be, in essence, to permit storage units as permitted in the zone. Do we have such a motion?
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2023-16 as outlined.
Thank you. Do we have a second to Councilmember Ekstrom's motion?
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember Dowpass. We'll take a roll call vote on this. Starting with you, Councilmember Barker.
Yes.
Councilmember Dowpass.
Yes.
Councilmember Ekstrom.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes on a unanimous on a 3-0 vote. Okay, we'll now go on to item number 7, which is a discussion to determine the best use of RDA funds to benefit the RDA area. This will be presented by Mr. Call. I've never heard this before, John, about a discussion on the use of the RDA funds.
Never at all.
Only 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times, so I'm hoping we can get to a decision at some point in time.
The nice thing is this time we're giving it to you in slide form.
Oh,
So
wow.
It's a multimedia event.
yeah. So and one final comment just on the last agenda item, council, that there's still 2 things that applicant has to do, which everyone does, which is there'll be a subdivision plan and a site plan. Both of those will get approved by the planning commission, and in theory could be approved at the same meeting, but just so you're aware of the steps forward for the group.
And John, I think we were making some tweaks to the development agreement.
Yeah, so we talked about it, or Terry mentioned it, that C1, M1. I think we all know what it meant, so we're just making sure that it's clarified. It's the M1 zone, not the C1.
And I think we had some time frame on the commercial part.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So here's our slideshow. This is an old RDA from the 90s, and I just wanted to focus again on what's the purpose of an RDA. The main purpose is down here where it says that the idea is that you're taking existing building stock and land uses that are obsolete and helping them grow and reinvigorate into a community asset. To do that, this program has been in place for, like I said, almost 30 years. Well, I guess almost 25. It was started 5 years before the money kicked in. But there's been a lot of projects that have gone on. Lee's has happened. The Nilsson's has happened. Smith's has happened. You know, these are some of those that we talked about last time. Largely because of just an injection of funds into those projects. I think the one that sticks out most closely was there was the sale of the land for the Smith's Marketplace was held up by about $200,000 or $300,000 because it couldn't pencil. And the city or the RDA injected that money into the contract to then help the deals close. It helped eliminate the old building, which then resulted in the new ACE building, and just basically help make that deal happen in a way that's benefited the city.
And John, I think it would be fair to say that the sales tax garnered from just that project itself far exceeded the investment.
Yes, that's correct.
One question in my mind is, do we have somewhat of a commitment on at least 300,000+ of this on the potential development on 2,700, or is that CDA or?
That's the CDA.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
So yeah, so redevelopment area, community development area are all regulated by the redevelopment agency. So we use the RDA acronym twice in the same concept. But yeah, so that is a different group or a different thing it's got another 18 years of life left in it. But here's just a quick list of what RDAs do. You know, improve roads. It's basically really focused on infrastructure improvements or making things happen, like buildings getting built, businesses moving in. And this is just a grand list. Our RDA was not as heavily focused on reducing crime, for example, because we didn't have a significant amount of crime impacted blight or crime caused blight. It was just structures that were old were the blight that the RDA found in going through the old plan. So these are things that can do. The question to the council, and we'll get to the when, is what do we want it to do? And so here's 5 ideas that me and Jamie and Scott kind of spitballed, or we've been talking about. One idea that's been talked about a lot is the aquatic center repair upgrade, including the parking lot, pools, the play structure over there, the one that shoots all the water around, just helping make that facility, bring it up to a newer standard so that replacement cost doesn't fall on something else. But it also will help, you know, there might be an opportunity to bring in some new facilities, new Boweries, things like that to attract more rentals and help invigorate that property. The North Ogden Plaza, the folks who operate in that facility want it called the North Ogden Plaza, not Kurtz Plaza or King's Plaza. So call it what you want, but that's what we're talking about. There's some talk about taking the creek that goes through there that's under the parking lot, raising it to the surface, helping the landowners there with some investment into the property to either rehab, redo, or scrape and rebuild. I mean, those are all things that are on the table for that one. Washington Boulevard improvements, that could be beautification, street lights, sidewalks, removing power lines. Those are types of things in there. The Bicentennial Park overhaul, the one up by Lee's by the stump. There's some work there that could be done with the money. And then the last one, and I've thrown this in, is just moderate income housing is one of those things that the newer redevelopment areas or the community investment areas, that's what they're called now, the reinvestment areas. They focus heavily on basically creating a moderate income housing component, and every new CRA is what they are called now. So new acronyms, community reinvestment areas, are required to have a moderate income housing component to their project list. The goal, and we'll come back to this slide, is by September 1st, so less than a month away, we get the list narrowed down or things added to it that the council has interest in, or community members that are projects in that could be part of this RDA expenditure, so that the staff can then spend the next month building a project budget for each of those items. And then on October 3rd, have the council narrow down the decision to which projects are we doing and how much for each of those projects. So then we could spend the next 3 months getting the necessary estimates and turning the paperwork into the state so that we can comply with the requirements of the state code, which says of the money that's available, we have to have it programmed, meaning fixed what we're going to spend it on by the end of the RDA cycle, which is December 31st of this year. For your information, the money that will be available will be in excess of $2.5 million. I don't want to give you an exact number because it might be 50,000 more, it might be 130,000 more, but it's in that general area, which means most likely we could accomplish more than one of these goals. But it is, as was mentioned earlier by Scott, this is the council city. You know, you're here to lead us. And so we need to know what projects you want us to focus on, because each of them have different benefits and impacts to the community. A good example is, you know, if we did sidewalk on Washington Boulevard 10-foot wide on one side of the road, that has a different impact than if we went down to the North Ogden Plaza and raised, anyways, brought the stream up to the surface. So this is meant to be a quick discussion, but also everyone should get out your phone and mark on your calendar, October 3rd. We want to have an extended discussion. So we'd try and start a little earlier in the day for that work session, or accept that we're going to maybe be here later at night having the conversation about which projects are the right projects.
So John, if I could just make one correction.
Yep.
To your comments. This isn't really the council city. It's the citizens city. We just represent them. Just want to clarify that. We get in a lot of trouble.
Okay.
Could you go back a couple slides, John?
Oh, back, yeah.
Forward. Okay, right there. Is there any priority in that? Let me ask this question, because I've said on numerous boards where this has been discussed. The intention for these RDAs and CDAs is obviously long-term to generate more sales tax or property tax. I mean, for the entities who gave up taxes to start with. Their hope was that these areas could be developed, the school district, the sewer district, whatever, then would benefit from development in those areas in regards to property tax. As I went through that list, I saw at the very top item, attract new jobs and businesses, which is really essential, I think, to our citizens here to maintain a decent level of property tax. So I'm just saying in my mind, since it was at the top of the list, that might be a high priority. I would also point out, and I don't want this to be a negative, but we have spent millions of dollars of RDA money already on the Aquatic Center. We paid off. Yeah. I think we subsidized that for a number of years. And I think it's something we surely need to maintain and make sure it's nice. But I did want to point out, you know, we have spent a good portion of the RDA money already in that particular area. So with that, we'll put on our calendars October 3rd. Correct?
Yep.
For a long discussion, because I do think it is time to surely get this resolved, and I think we surely can. These are some great ideas, and we surely can look at that list of things there and try to fit it into these bullet points, and we'll go from that.
And I think the idea on October 3rd was to feed you all lunch and then talk.
Oh, so you're talking about lunchtime? Huh?
Yeah. unless the council would like to say, okay, let's eat dinner and stay late, although I know that late is hard sometimes, but also taking off work is a hard time too. So that's why we wanted to, I guess it's maybe choose your own adventure. Which would you prefer? And Councilman Swanson just has to live with your decision tonight, so.
Why don't we kind of survey, John and council, see what works so that we can get good participation. I think this is an important thing. And so let's survey the council, give them some time to digest this and have them look at their schedules, and then we can set a time. But if you at least like some of that off, set some time apart on that. Okay. Anything else, John, you'd like to add on that brief discussion?
I just so if you haven't seen this yet, this can help you better understand the tax history. So this is the Lee's, or the formerly Acre Market property. And this is the county website. If you ever looked at it before, it was never this dynamic. So this is the new website, graphs and charts. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit over here. So this is shown in 1999 when the RDA was starting. This was the taxable value, and it's gone up 50%, give or take, maybe 45. But that's the purpose of the RDA, is to increase the value of the investment, because that in turn has an impact on how much property tax is collected. And then also with the city, we also get additional sales tax, because when those businesses succeed, then we get sales tax too. So
I think, John, that's really important what you mentioned, and on that graph is property tax is one of the main reasons RDAs were put together, to enhance the value of the property. And on some of those lists on the issue, some of those investments wouldn't create property tax because some of the entities are tax exempt.
correct.
So
Yep.
we've got to balance that, I think, for the original intention, but knowing that we've got to, facility, we've got to make sure it's nice, represents the city, so. Okay, is there any other graphs and charts you'd like to share with us?
Nope.
Those are nice colors, John, thank you very much. Okay, you want to update us on the flood damage that we incurred as a result of the great winter we had?
Is that what we're calling it, the Great Winter?
Well, you look at it, it was a incredible winter. And then I think this rainstorm we had recently, I know Draper said that they built their storm sewers for a 100-year storm, but they classified this as a 500-year storm. So fortunately, our system handled it well, but it was substantial rain. So
Yes, it was.
no flooding, that was good.
So let me pull up this map so the council can see it, if you can. So there's three areas of the city that we're gonna talk about, that we told you we'd update you. It doesn't mean these are the only three areas that we saw issues, but these are the areas where we saw some of the most significant damage. And I'm gonna start with the cheapest damage that we experienced, and that is up in this canyon, in the North Ogden Canyon, which is the divide. We have several wells and springs, and in order to get up there, we have to drive up some access roads to get to all of them, and they go up there quite a ways. The floodwaters washed out that road in some pretty significant ways, and the repair and replacement costs are going to be about $12,000. So not a significant expense, but not necessarily something we were planning on. We're doing the installation ourselves. We bought we call them seconds, which means they're pipes that either didn't meet the manufacturing requirements for a water or a storm drain line, but they meet our needs for a culvert, meaning something that someone can drive a vehicle over on a roadway. The second area, which I know the council's aware of, we haven't talked about it in a while, was this intersection at the top of the city at 4050 North and 100 East. That's the road that goes into Pleasant View that most people would go through up Lakeview and head out that way to go. Some people who lived in Pleasant View would go that way. But this intersection had a significant amount of underground water intrusion that undermined the road and then surfaced in this intersection. And so we've actually got a quote back from a reputable company, and the cost to replace it is about $165,000. And that will include a full rebuild. And then there's a couple areas that are impacted that because we're fixing it, we have to bring it up to standard. And so there's some actually ADA ramp replacements that are happening that will be extending the project a little further. It's kind of like most things with standards. If you don't touch it, it's fine. But as soon as you touch it, you got to do it right. And then the last one, which is the one everyone's aware of, is down in 1700, where we experienced the runoff as it came out of our storm drain system here and across the road, washed out curb and gutter and undermined kind of the side of the road, which, you know, was a fairly significant amount of damage. Initial estimates, because we were really worried about the integrity of this entire section of the roadway between the 925 East and Fruitland Drive, we were worried about just the integrity, was that it could be as high as $500,000 or $600,000. After it's dried out and we've had some ability to assess and then also been able to see what's moving, we're pleasantly surprised that our current engineer's estimate is $106,000. So significantly better. And I believe that this also includes the replacement of 3 or 4 culverts that are those private drive culverts that go along the canal that's there, or the ditch, whatever you want to call it. But some of them are, what we really need is about a 36-inch pipe, and they're anywhere from 24. There's a few 36-inch pipes there, so they don't need to be replaced. It's just the smaller ones that don't meet the flow needs of the engineers have told us. And it's also funny because not every driveway is the same. If it's a very steep part of the road, a 30-inch pipe can handle it. But if it's a flatter part of the road, then a 36 might be required. So the engineer will work with us on that. That's also an area where we will be looking for those seconds again, those kind of, you know, they're not imperfect for our needs, but they're not perfect enough for what a sewer line would need, for example. So those are the 3 projects. Is there any others that the council's aware of that we need to update you on?
John, I think we were talking about some prevention up above Mountain Road that might entail some work. I know we don't know exactly what that is yet, but I think we've had some discussion about maybe some preventative measures there that don't seem to be overly costly, but need to be done.
That's correct, Mayor. And we don't have a bid for that, but for those who don't know, as the water comes down the canyon, it goes under the road in this area. Oh, I'm off right here. And there's some improvements that we're talking about for that grate to help so it doesn't clog and cause issues. Some debris and stuff got through that grate, which is why this area plugged up and the water surfaced on the road instead of staying in the storm drain line. So
I think the quality of the drain is what we were talking about, having to upgrade that to prevent that. So that's good news. John, I think it's good counsel that we do have some funds in reserve for these unknown things of this nature, but much less than we anticipated. So John, thanks to you and the other staff members who have looked at that and assessed it. We appreciate it. John, did we want to talk about, just introduce this evening, the interlocal cooperation agreement that the county has asked us to take a look at? Obviously, this will be brought back to the council after we have a chance to tweak some of the things in the agreement. But are you prepared, John, just to give a high level oversight to the council so they know what we're dealing with here?
yeah. So the county operates a transfer station where most of the county's municipal waste goes, and it's then put in train cars and sent out west to dump sites, massive dump sites. And the county they've owned it, operated it, and obviously have some maintenance that goes along with that. And there's some concerns at the county level that if the cities aren't on board and partners in the program, and decide to start looking at other places to send their trash, then that could undermine the long-term viability of that facility. And so they've proposed an agreement, one with an initial term of about 6 months that would obligate the city to send all our trash there, which we have done and most likely will continue to do. And then but then it has some automatic 2-year renewals, and they would like an answer back from us pretty quickly on this. And so with the way the agreement's currently set up, with it just being a 6-month agreement and basically under the terms of what we've already been operating under, the mayor and I can talk with them and sign that 6-month agreement. But sometime in the next 3 or 4 months, we'll bring you back an agreement that will be that extended. Currently, it's projected out to about 12 years of with the extensions that are in it. But we just wanted you to be aware that we're having that conversation and to be thinking about it. And there's some speculation, but there are other entities, I think, that are looking at purchasing waste handling sites in Weber County. And so that's why I think the county has some concerns, because if they take their stream and divide it in half, then there might not be enough maintenance overhead costs associated with the dump fees to keep the facility going. And so they're just trying to see if they can get the city partnerships in place. So even if there's commercial individuals who move to another facility, there's still the municipalities that are sending their curbside trash there, which will give them enough money to keep the facility operating efficiently.
Yeah, and that's their motivation, trying to get commitments from the city. However, John and myself have had a discussion there. Commercial haulers are getting fewer and fewer. And if they start putting conditions on bidding on jobs, we surely want to have someone who can take care of our garbage needs. And so there is some tweaking in the agreement that John and myself are talking about. And but I think for 6 months, we're not putting ourselves at risk. So we just wanted you to be aware of that. Any questions?
And I was going to add, Mayor, if you're not aware, Pleasant View, their hauler called them up one day and said, in 4 months, we will no longer service your city. And so they exercised their out contract, and another vendor, they went through the RFP process and got a new one, but it's a rough industry right now.
Yeah, I think they had one response.
Yep, they ended up with one
Response. Okay, just wanted you to be aware of that. I did save this to the end, so you'd have a chance to see how Ryan did this evening before we officially take a vote to appoint her as our city recorder. So I think she did pretty dang good. For what I can tell. So with that, council, I would be asking for a vote to appoint Ryan Santori. Santoro. I'll get it right sooner or later. As our city recorder. Are there any questions on that? Can I get a motion to officially appoint Ryan as our city recorder?
Mayor, I move that we appoint Ryan Santoro as our city recorder.
A motion, second by Ryan Walker. Any further discussion on that? We can do that with just a voice vote, I believe. John, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? No change in your mind now, Ryan? All right, we're on item number 9 now, which would be some reports. Councilmember Dalpaz will report to us on building and planning. And then Councilmember Swanson is vacant tonight. He's on an extended European experience. I saw Jamie here, but I think when she saw that he wasn't here and needed a finance report, she hightailed it out of here. So I guess you're the star tonight, Councilmember Dalpaz.
Well, not much. So as far as building and planning goes, just one thing I wanted to mention is that we are still trying to fill our planner position. So if anyone is aware of a talented individual that could be an asset to our city for that position, please get in contact with Scott Hess and get resumes sent over, and because that's something that ultimately we want to relieve Scott of some of his duties. He's been doing a lot of double duty with having that open position, and I don't want to keep him strung out too long. So just, that's my only update.
Thank you, Scott. I know that all of our department heads have a lot on their table, on their plate right now, but we surely know that we're performing double duty and want you to know we appreciate that. Doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you. All right, we'll go then to item number 10, and see if there's any further public comments this evening, either online or here in person.
Doug Anderson. No public say. I'm not gonna wait this time. I'll be the first one. As I've sat here and listened to all this discussion, and I appreciate the job that you folks do. I really do. I'm appreciating it more and more every meeting I attend. I think, wow, you guys do a great job. I have a suggestion, maybe a couple of suggestions. John, I think you mentioned that list of 5 possible things to do with the RDA was kind of spitballed together, just some, you gotta have something to start. Since this is our city, okay, that includes everyone in this room and everyone, what is it, 20,000 people not in this room, roughly. Yeah, you represent us, obviously, and try to make the best decisions that we would want to have done. But since it's our city, how about you open up that list that you spitball together to flash vote? You want to know what we want? Ask us. Not just the 20 people in this room, but do a flash vote. Get some more ideas. The risk there, a couple of risks is you'll get so many ideas that you won't know what to do with them. You'll have to, but that would be a great problem to have, I think. And another risk is that somebody will submit an idea and it won't get adopted, and they'll think, man, those guys don't listen to me, I'm not voting for them next year. So there is risks either way, but that's my suggestion. Put it on flash vote. And along with the improvement to the aquatic center that I think was one of the 5 spitball ideas, I have heard more than one time from different people, just, grapevine, why don't we put a cover on the pool so it can be used in the wintertime? Maybe that idea has already been suggested, but I'd like to suggest that. I think that would be a great thing, so we can go swimming during the winter, make double use of that. So, those are just a couple of suggestions. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Doug.
Sandy Cochran, North Ogden. I would like to commend the council on voting the correct way so that Mr. Severin can continue with his project. Village at Prominence Point residents are, a lot of them are currently in a big back and forth with the HOA because there are jet skis and boats and 4-wheelers and trailers all over the place because it's not allowed anywhere in the development. When our development's done, there's going to be over 600 homes there. Those people need somewhere to put their things. And just because they're in townhouses or patio homes or apartments doesn't mean they shouldn't be entitled to have the same toys anyone else in the city has. And there's just not a place for them. And it seems like in the past, maybe the city had an aversion to storage units. And if that's the case, maybe you need to stop approving all the townhouses and apartments and things like that. It's just my opinion, but thank you for your vote. I think it was the correct one.
Sarah.
Hello, Meg Sanders, North Ogden resident. Thanks for doing this. Thanks for sitting here every Tuesday and listening to everybody. And I'll make it quick since the end of the night, I'm gonna be done. I just wanted to I wasn't planning on commenting, but with the RDA, I'd call it a CRA. I've gotten to learn a little bit about that. So my only thing is, opposed to flash voting, is to do it based on statistics and research and an accountant, CPA, something along those lines, running the numbers so that you get the most benefit from your CRA. Because as you see, it pays in dividends and it can completely change a way a city operates. Looking at Ogden City, and as they're just announced their CRA for the airport, it's going to change the way that city gets to do that portion and what we can get, what they can get from that. Anyway, what I'm here for is, I was just playing soccer with my kids at Wadman Park. I was disappointed to see that with the issues with the flooding, our parks are sincerely damaged. And soccer is starting in a week. There are potholes that are literally 8 inches deep. I broke my ankle in a pothole at Wadman 3 years ago. So I just wanted us to be aware of that. And I think while it is difficult to recover from the flooding that we've had, it is possible to have Public Works go out and fill those potholes and make that. We're going to have hundreds of kids playing, and there are going to be pictures of little Timmy playing on that field, and North Ogden's going to be tagged. It's going to be posted somewhere, and your parks are your lipstick. So we need to refresh it and make them look good, and probably pretty quick here. So thanks.
Councilman Barker, would you follow up on that? Let's see. Yep. Maybe have somebody contact me to let her know what happened. Okay, thank you for the comments. Anyone online, John?
We do have a raised hand. First is Susan Clemens.
Okay.
Good evening, City Council. A couple of questions. When you were discussing the RDA, what RDAs can do or can be, one on that list, you indicated that cleanup of hazardous waste was one of the options. Do we have any hazardous waste in North Ogden City?
So sometimes in RDAs, that's called the brownfield. So like old gas stations and things, we're not aware of any, what they call a super site, where there's significant pollution, but anything from oil leaks to gasoline can be considered environmental hazard that could be used, RDA funds could be used to clean that up.
Okay, good. Thank you. Appreciate that. I guess we have had several old gas stations that have moved out and other things have gone in. And I guess we have not had that problem with the old gas stations.
I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. All right. Just a shout out to all the city council and anyone listening. This is a shout out for Barker Park, especially the Hollow. The Hollow at Barker Park, if any of you have been there, it is a magical place. If you have kids, either elementary age kids, teenage kids, even you would enjoy walking through the Hollow. It's been wonderful to be on the committee for the Build Barker Park and getting to know that Hollow and how special it is. And the water is running through it now. So if you haven't been down there this year, you need to go again and see the Hollow the way it was when I was a kid, which I didn't ever know it as a child because I didn't live in that area. But it's pretty amazing. So take your kids on a nice evening and go up through the Hollow and hike the path and enjoy that area. Thank you.
Susan. John, did you say we have another hand raised?
We do. We have Christina Watson.
Okay, Christina.
Hi, Christina Watson. I'm a North Ogden resident. And I just wanted to second the comments from the last woman who was there in person. I strongly believe that if we have money to spend to maintain it, our city left from RDA, that it would be the most beneficial and strategic to first make a priority to projects that we already have to pay for or maintain, rather than start a new project that will cost money to maintain. I love the idea of the Coldwater Creek, but root surface. But I do believe that just coming from the standpoint of being a chairman on the Parks and Trails Committee, every time there's equipment, playground equipment that needs repaired or a park that needs to be developed, it's really difficult to get the money needed for that. I'm so on board with the idea of repairing potholes and grass from all of the storm damage. I think that should be included in all of our winter recovery costs, is repairing all the parks that were flooded that now are in poor condition because of the flood. And I know that there's always an issue with having the staff needed to go take care of everything, but I do feel like it's worth investing in those things that we already need to take care of before we start a new project.
Okay, thank you, Christina. I just would like to mention and give the council some kudos. In the budgeting process, they have looked forward and planned for improvements in the city, which includes setting aside money for park repairs and future park land, which I think is something that's historically hasn't necessarily been the case, John, if I understood things right.
Correct.
So the council has addressed, I think, trying to maintain our parks, improve our parks, and be prepared for the growth in the city. So that's part of our budgeting process. Anyone else, John?
No.
Sure. State your name if you're a resident of North Ogden, and try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Perfect. I'll be brief. I have just a couple thoughts. So Jacob Sorensen, North Ogden resident. I live right next to the animal hospital. I came a couple of years back and was discussing anyways, another thing with you guys. Couple thoughts, three things. First thing is my wife and I like to go on walks with our kids. And when we first moved to North Ogden, one of the reasons where we live is because that's where we can afford. And it's such a small piece of area between the next road up and the corner where the road's nicely done. But it has been a little nerve-wracking trying to walk with the three little ones down that little piece. So sidewalk in that little section would be amazing. I know that it's a small thing. The other thing is there's the city land on the back of our yard, and we have a small garden, nothing crazy. But the crickets are out of control this year, and the city land right there, as you know, it's like a hill, but the weeds are a little bit taller, and I think it's created a little bit of a bed for the crickets to go every year. Our garden's like pretty much devoured by those. I don't know if there's any way. If there's a way for me to purchase that land even so that I could maintain it down to the hill and keep the crickets off, or if there's a way to maintain it so that it's just more lively. And I have looked at a couple different options, even with Scott previously, about potentially developing my land differently so that we could have different options, but I'm just trying to be creative, I guess, with those two things. The second thought I had tonight was I was able to be on the Cherry Days committee, side with the concert, as was mentioned. So that was my side of it, was bringing together the artists, bringing together the stage. I will say that the earlier, the better with planning that side of things. We can save a lot of money, probably about $5,000 at least on the stage side of things. And I think that kind of production is really what brings people together. My wife and I are both artists. That really glues everything together. You bring people out with excellent entertainment. I think the headliners that we had were amazing. I'm grateful that we were able to have budget for them. So thank you to everybody who raised money from donors and everything that way. I think there were a lot of artists who also played for free. And I know that that's their livelihood in a lot of cases. So even having a small budget of an additional portion to pay those other artists, a small portion, even if it's $200 or $300, because that's what they do for a living, you know what I mean? Just making that additional piece so we could save the money and invest it in those artists by doing it earlier. and probably close to 5 minutes. But I think those were my main thoughts with the RDA, the sidewalk piece. So I don't know if that's, and it's a small portion, if not, maybe another way, but all that.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us, and Councilmember Ekstrom, if you could maybe check on that ground that we maintain it, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but in the last year, I think the council passed a situation where if you want to beautify that land, you can kind of utilize it. It's a very low cost land from the city.
It's an adopt
It's an
a
adopt.
parcel. Starting out.
Yeah, I know that there's a piece of like the cell phone tower. So I'm like, it's just that little piece down
Yeah,
there.
you may want to talk to Scott about pursuing that option that wasn't available, I think, before, so.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
coming. Anyone else, John, online?
Nope, just those two.
Anyone else here like to comment?
Merrill Sunderland, North Ogden. First of all, I don't say this much, but council and mayor, I do agree with some of the comments that have been made. You people do quite a job. Also, I disagree with some of the things you do, but that's not the point. You do a great job. So keep it up. There were two comments made about the RDA. How do you get more input from the residents? I have no idea how you're gonna do it, but please do what you can. Well, yeah, 3 weeks. Do what you can to get some more input. To see if they agree with that start of the list, or if there are some more valuable projects. I shouldn't say this out loud, but I agree with Christina Watson comment on RDA funds for existing, not starting new projects. Interesting logic, good logic. But do not forget in your long-term planning to raise that Coldwater Creek out of that parking lot. Did I get that right? Is it Coldwater Creek? In the Kings or whatever you're gonna call the parking lot. Don't lose that project for today or next year. And let's keep that, let's put that on at least some long-term plan. Great idea. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment this evening? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone else that would like to comment, so we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. Let's start in reverse. Staff, anyone here have comments they'd like to make? Scott, Nate, I think Jamie left. Okay. Council, do you have any comments you'd like to make? Any communications you've had from citizens you'd like to share? Councilmember Barker?
Yeah, to give an update on the disc golf, myself and Dave met with, is it Nate? Kyle Hunter, right? Okay, I'm sorry to have his name written down. We met with him, he's already got $1,000 donation submitted, and then if you remember, it was a $2,000 and something proposal for the project. Dave left, but he talked to him, I don't know if he said he's already raised another 1,000, but he wants to know what the council, if the council wants to move forward, because they want to get it in and get a tournament going this fall to pay for the rest of it. Correct or not correct?
That's correct, and we do have some funds identified, specifically the grant money that we get just from the municipality grant, because we have 22,000 people who live here. That would be a good source and a good project for that type of funds.
I guess the question would be the use of the land and which piece of property that he was looking at would be something the city's willing to utilize. We have the two pieces, I think, over by the green waste permit. South of that, there was another piece.
Lakeview Park, yeah.
Lakeview Park. Any preference, council, on parcel we'd like him to kind of utilize and see if this works for them.
Which one's best suited?
So his proposal for up by the equestrian park, he actually says everything will be going from the outside in, so he doesn't have to worry about losing discs up the mountain or hitting the horse or any of that other stuff, just throwing inward. He kind of considered up there, but he said it's kind of steep. So over here, it's more family friendly.
Do we think we've got adequate parking, John?
So that was one thing we're talking to him about, that we would need to utilize the equestrian park as the parking. And so as they came in, they would have to hike up the hill, and there might be a hole that takes them up the hill, and then they're on the flat area, and then they go back down.
So if I'm hearing right, council's okay with the utilization of that property, and we need to vote on that, John.
No, I think we're okay to just.
I think this is, obviously not a permanent thing. I think he wanted to see how it worked, and we need to make sure we've got adequate. Anything else? All right, then I will close the meeting with, I think, just a couple of comments. Lynn pointed this out, but the theme of Cherry Days, plural, was We Are One. And I think the story she told about that young man stepping up and helping the other young man, I think there were probably more of those things than we saw or heard. And I think that's what community is all about, is coming together and helping each other out. There are many ways we can do that. And I think this was, an opportunity for people who decided to take advantage of that opportunity, found that it was bringing the community together. And obviously entertainment's our number one thing, but I think it is part of our responsibilities to make sure we have a community and not just a city. And I appreciate those who looked for the good in what took place with the efforts of many people. I think if I heard Lynn right, there were 500 people plus that were involved in participating in Cherry Days. And I know the committee is open to suggestions, and as they digest the feedback they receive, that I'm sure they'll enhance things and make necessary adjustments for the purpose of the entire community. So with that, Councilmember Ekstrom might be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Meeting is adjourned.